And this administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America.
In 1964, President Lyndon Baines Johnson declared a war on poverty. Through his myriad of social reform programs, the president left a lasting legacy on the nation's poor. The war on poverty was designed to reduce the immense poverty rate of 22% in 1964. In Johnson's attempt to do so, he aimed to establish a more available public education system, bestow hope among the young, and expand his social welfare program. Despite the strong criticism he received, President Johnson proposed many acts and programs to enhance the economic well-being of impoverished Americans.
President Johnson's leadership was evident when he convinced Congress to pass his social welfare programs. Johnson was known for his persuasive personality and his ability to compromise and get results.
If there ever was a president who could master the legislative branch, who could get things passed, it was Lyndon Johnson, because he had been doing it for such a long time.
Since Johnson was a vigorous, powerful, and dedicated senator of Texas, President John F. Kennedy selected Johnson as vice president during his administration in 1961. After Kennedy's assassination, Johnson was sworn into office on November 22, 1963. During Johnson's presidency, members of Congress were reluctant to pass his frequently proposed bills. Senator Barry Goldwater, his opponent in the 1964 election, was an avid challenger of the war on poverty. There were many critics who believed Johnson's push for the war on poverty was just an effort to win votes in the fall election of 1964. A major part of his criticism came from Southern Democrats. Since segregation was still present in the South, these white men in government did not want to do anything to help the blacks. Since Johnson was a senator from Texas in his early years, this helped him gain support from the Southern congressmen. President Johnson proved his leadership skills by making deals with his political opponents. The war on poverty was the center of Johnson's presidency.
Often presidents have something that's close to their hearts that they want to define them and their legacy as a president. And for Johnson, the war on poverty was to be his legacy.
Johnson's upbringing in East Texas allowed him to experience poverty firsthand. The Great Depression and New Deal influenced his belief that the government should help bring poor citizens out of poverty. Johnson wanted to enhance Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal legacy.
Poverty is a national problem, requiring improved national organization and support. But this attack, to be effective, must also be organized at the state and the local level and must be supported and directed by state and local efforts.
The Economic Opportunity Act of 1964 was proposed by Johnson to provide every citizen with the opportunity for education and training, the opportunity to work, and the opportunity to live in civility and dignity. The unfortunate circumstances that led to the need for an Economic Opportunity Act was that in 1964, more than one-fifth of the total U.S. population was living in poverty with incomes below the poverty line, which at the time was $3,000 per year for a family of four. In a period of unprecedented prosperity, approximately one-half of all non-whites were living in poverty. The philosophy behind the Economic Opportunity Act was that the government has an obligation to offer the American people a chance to earn and maintain a comfortable living for themselves and their families. Within the adoption of the Economic Opportunity Act, 11 additional programs were established: Job Corps, Neighborhood Youth Corps, Work Study, Head Start, the Food Stamp System, Urban and Rural Community Action, Adult Basic Education, Voluntary Assistance for Needy Children, Loans to Rural Families, Assistance for Migrant Agricultural Employees, Employment and Investment Incentives, Work Experience, and Volunteers in Service to America. The main purpose of each of these programs was to provide the needy with chances to better their lives. Several members of Congress, such as Senator Barry Goldwater, were opposed to the bill and its reliance upon the federal government. Despite the vast amount of opposition towards the Economic Opportunity Act, President Johnson's leadership persuaded Congress to get the bill passed, and on August 20th, 1964, it was passed, and thus began construction of government-funded social welfare programs.
President Johnson followed in the footsteps of John F. Kennedy when he committed to ending hunger by signing the Food Stamps Act of 1964. Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP, was founded by Johnson to mitigate American hunger. SNAP provides better nutrition for 15 million children living in poor households. Food stamps are distributed as vouchers for food purchases. The increased demand for nutritional foods benefited the American agricultural economy. Food stamps have been continuously celebrated for their nutritional assistance to many people in need. Exposure to food stamps leads to improvements in adult health and economic self-sufficiency. The SNAP program has continued to expand over the years and now serves 47 million Americans. About 1 in 5 Americans have participated in the food stamp program, and about a quarter lives in a household with a current or former food stamp recipient. However, there's been controversy over whether there should be cuts in funding for food stamps.
The legacy of Johnson's social welfare programs includes his food stamp programs, Head Start, Medicare, and Job Corps. Johnson's establishment of programs over the years has helped working families survive. Medicare and Medicaid are government-funded medical programs created by Johnson during the 1960s. Head Start was created to close the large educational gap between the poor and the wealthy. On average, poor children enter kindergarten with a vocabulary a fraction of the size of their middle to upper class peers. This program received bipartisan government support to provide health, social, educational, and mental health services to children in low-income families. Head Start has provided results in the first few years of establishment where students showed improvements in IQ scores. Since its initiation, Head Start has enrolled over 21 million children. Most analysis claim there are short-term positive effects of Head Start programs such as improved health, increased scores on academic exams, and higher self-esteem. Long-term effects are less clear.
Job Corps is another social welfare program that Johnson designed to give young Americans the opportunity to become skilled, responsible workers. Johnson wanted to make sure every American was able to receive a job and create a better life. Job Corps provides food, shelter, work clothes, healthcare, and job training to poverty-stricken people aged 16 to 21 across the United States. This federal program enrolled about 70,000 workers and has annually served more than 1.9 million young men and women.
President Johnson signed the Medicare bill on July 30, 1965 to guarantee health insurance for elderly citizens. Medicare requires employees to contribute a small portion of their salaries towards a health insurance fund. These payroll deductions enabled participants 65 years and older to be provided with hospital care, diagnostic care, and post-hospital home visits. Medicare consists of two main sections: hospital insurance and supplementary medical insurance. Medicare covers doctor's bills, outpatient medical care, operating and recovery rooms, intensive care, prescription drugs, and laboratory tests. President Lyndon B. Johnson stated during the signing of the Medicare bill on July 30, 1965, there are more than 18 million Americans over the age of 65. Most of them have low incomes. Most of them are threatened by illness and medical expenses that they cannot afford. Although the Medicare bill has undergone modifications since it passed, the basic structure of the act remains the same.
Lyndon Baines Johnson introduced his War on Poverty to increase the health, skills, jobs, and access to economic resources to those who constantly struggle. Through his War on Poverty, Johnson left a lasting legacy which ultimately reduced poverty by more than one-third since 1967.
Johnson's War on Poverty has a legacy that's still with us today. Some of the programs that were created, like Head Start, like the Job Corps, are still with us today. The increases in Medicare and Medicaid, the increases in social services are still with us today.
Cumulatively, Johnson's programs have prevented 1.2 billion person-years of poverty. Researchers believe without this fight against poverty, we could have expected over 45 million people in poverty in America. In total, Johnson's legacy has helped 1.2 billion people out of poverty between 1968 and 2012. During Johnson's reign, the poorest country of the United States was the South, with 47% of families receiving less than $3,000 a year. However, this number has diminished over the years across several segments of the Southern population. Many people attest to the importance of the War on Poverty and believe that the revolution should be renewed to care for the people who are in the most need. Despite real growth in the War on Poverty, there is still more work to be done. America is seen as the land of economic opportunity. There were still 49.7 million Americans living below the poverty line in 2012. Lyndon Baines Johnson was able to leave a lasting legacy and provide America's poor with hope for the future through his extensive social reform and work programs.
So we want to open the gates to opportunity. But we're also going to give all our people, black and white, the help that they need to walk through those gates.